Welcome back to part 2 on how to create a landscape. First of all, sorry that it took me so long to bring out this second part. I was working on another video which you can see in my channel as well. I had to experiment a lot with the settings to get a decent result and also to speed up the render. And I will now show you what I changed to be to make it a real animation, so you don't have to wait 10 or 15 minutes to produce a frame. Now, the best improvement there was something about last week when they brought out the GPU support for the new Cycles hair strength render. In my case, using the GPU speeds up the render for about 5 times, and if you use an NVIDIA card, it will really help you, and you will see a difference. Anyway, you can download this at graphical.org/1028, and I realized in the last part that I made some mistakes, and I'm trying to fix them now. So first of all, it is not really necessary that you use the transparency node in here, because it slows down your render extremely. So if you just delete these nodes, put just the diffuse in here into the mix shader, you will see that it speeds up the render already twice, maybe 3 times. Depends on how much grass you see in the image, or how much of the viewport is filled with grass. You also don't need these texture coordinates, because it takes the UV, and because we unwrapped the plane, we have the UV already, so this also gives a decent result. The next thing is that I needed to do some fine-tuning on the grass, because the thing is that the CPU uses the RAM you have in your computer, and usually the GPU has less memory available, so it's not possible to render so big scenes, or big scenes, not as big scenes as we try to render here. So using the GPU, we have to lower the amount of grass first of all. So we do this in the emission tab. I'm lowering it to about 8,000 hair strands. Also the velocity, I'm just making the grass a little bit smaller, because it's more realistic, especially if you have a look at the grass in front. It just looks weird if it's too big. The next thing is the physics. I saw this in one of Andrew Price's videos. He put up the damping a little bit. It's basically a force coming from top and bending the grass to the ground, so it just adds in a little bit of realism to it. And also, what I didn't do the last time is this random value down here. It helps also to make the grass look more realistic, because it changes the length of some of these strands. So you have these instances of the strands, and as you play around with this value, you'll see that some are taller, some are bigger, and some are smaller. To reduce the BVH building time, you could lower this value here. It depends on which graphic card you are using, and if you got a lot of memory, you don't have to change these settings I'm changing here, but it's just I just want to have a quick render. I also didn't change this value the last time. This is how the grass is, the thickness of the grass, basically how it is proportioned. I don't know how to say this. Like if you have a strand going like this, or if you have a strand just going like this, for example, this value decides where this strand starts to get thinner. Some of you might already know this, where you can read everything to on the strands on Wikipedia, or they have a in the Blender community there's a wiki page where you can read everything about these values. Anyway, changing this to minus 0.8, and these values here are new. It is kind of difficult to explain. It depends on the pixel. So if you say you fire some rays inside the scene, and the rays hit one of these strands down back here, sometimes it's not even a pixel big, the strand, so it will look noisy. And if you put these value to, let's say, 1 for instance, it will blur these strands. So I show you this with an example. So this is rendered with 30 samples, and this one is the blurred image, and this one is the image where I left the values at 0. So maybe you see the difference. You see it especially at the back where you have smaller strands. So again, this one looks much more noisy, and the other one looks blurred, kind of blurred. So this is also an option I would recommend. Now the last thing is we have to change the scaling. So we don't need to have, or we don't have to set up as much instances of grass at the same area. So if you have smaller grass, you need much more to fill the same area. If you have less grass available, you just make it a little bit thicker. So it seems like the density didn't change, but it is basically cheating. It's not real. So anyway, just change this to 0.06, and we will give this a render. But before, yeah, we need to change the tile size to 256, because the graphic card is working faster using bigger tiles. This is because the CPU is multi-threaded, which means it can calculate more tiles at a time, and the GPU usually calculates one tile, and after it's finished, it goes to the next tile. So changing always takes some calculating time, and if you put in a higher value in here, the GPU doesn't have to change the tiles as much. Just as a try of explanation. So you see the result in here. It is pretty good, I think, and it just takes really a quarter of the time. I would say like a quarter of the time of the image we got out of our last part. So I'm just going to abort this render now, and I'm going to add in a background plane. So Shift A to add images as planes. If you don't see this, if you don't have this option there, you can just go to add-ons and type an image, and you see import images as planes in here. So just activate it, and then you will have images as planes. Then we search for an image of a sky. Let's take this one. And sometimes usually you have something like a line to view in here, but probably not if you insert an image as plane. Anyway, I will just scale this up, not that much, yeah, and then rotate it around the x-axis until it fits in the viewport. Scale it up too much. Okay, so just look at the lines. If they line up with the viewport, then it is okay. bring it up, and I'm also just going to scale it a little bit in the Z direction. So we change this to material to have a look. It's alright, okay. And you see it's inside the plane, so we need to grab it and put it back. So scale it up again. Okay. Now this looks like a good horizon. Okay, you grab this image and put it onto the third layer, and in the third layer we will set up a new render layer. This is the main layer, and this is the background layer, and in this layer we just calculate the background. So you just choose this layer in here, and we will calculate this with only one sample. This is because this is going to be a emission material, and you don't need high sample rates to calculate the emission material. So if we would have put this in the same scene as our grass, it would render also in 40 frames, excuse me, 40 samples, and this is not necessary. We need to render this in 40 samples, and the background image plane just takes one sample. You will see what I mean once we do this. I'm just gonna lower this value down here so we get a quick result. And yeah, we have to uncheck this layer in the main layer so it doesn't render the background. Okay, let's have a look. I'll just stop the recording. Now this is the image we get after our render, and now we go into the compositor. You press Ctrl left arrow to go into this view and click use nodes. Then we're gonna duplicate this render layer, just bring it up to full view, pressing Ctrl arrow up, and choose background in here. Here you got the background. If you press Ctrl Shift and click on any of these nodes, it will bring the image that is in the viewer into the backdrop. We didn't activate the backdrop yet, so I'm just gonna do this now, and yeah, there it is. So this is our horizon, and we need to put our background image, our sky, into the alpha of this image. So we're just gonna take an alpha over node for this. I'm not quite sure what it is. Color alpha over, and then always put the image at the bottom that is in the front, and the alpha value is this node. Yeah. Now you got your scene set up with a background. The next thing we're going to do is we have to animate the grass, and there are a few ways of doing this. Because we use strands, it is possible to let them being influenced by force fields. You can take wind, or sometimes I tried Voronoi. No, what's it called? It's called vortex. No, turbulence. Yes, you can take turbulence or wind and play around with the values, but I found that using a texture is kind of the best way, because it really gives some individually, I don't know. I just looked this word up. Individuality to it. Okay. To animate our grass, we go into the physics panel of our empty, and we change the strength to 0.037. Also, we have to move the empty to the first layer. The empty, or any force field, just influences the objects which are on the same layer So it was on the third layer just now, and it would influence nothing but this plane. So we bring it on the first layer to influence the grass. Then we go into texture, choose our texture field down here, and we will create a new one. This is going to be our field, and set the size to 0.45, this nubla value to 0.016, and if we go if we take our empty now, we have to tell the grass being influenced by the position, by the coordinates of the empty. So it is like the empty projects the texture from top, and the grass is being influenced by it. So if we change the position of the empty or rotate it, the grass changes. Now we just have to key the empty, the position or the rotation of the empty, and just gonna bring up the timeline here. Then we go to frame 0, set this one to rotation. So when you press E, it always takes it always keys the rotation. You can see this in here, somewhere here. So now we key the empty, then we move to about 2 seconds forward, rotate the empty around the Z direction, and then we're going to key this again. You can have now different steps down here. I'm just going to key at the last frame and rotate the empty again. The more different keys, the more variety you have inside your timeline, the more keys you set in the rotation, the more natural it would look, because sometimes you have some breeze, some wind that is coming up really suddenly and slows down really suddenly. So you can just play around with these values and see what seems realistic or more realistic to you. During the last part I told you that we didn't apply the subsurf modifier onto the plane. Oh no, we did apply the subsurf modifier onto the plane because we wanted to draw on it later on, and now is that time. So I'm going to deactivate the particle system in here so we can work smoothly on the plane, and you have to choose mix at the blend type, and then you press Alt and draw a line up. This gives you a gradient texture. So we want to achieve that the grass which is in front or in the front of the image is the density is higher, and the further away it goes, the lower the density will be. But still, if we leave this now, the blue areas will have no grass, and we will have at least some grass there. So I'm using the levels option and setting the offset to 0.2 or something like this, and you see that now the area in the back is not entirely dark blue but a lighter blue, which indicates that there is grass as well, but not as much as in the front. So to give the density some more randomness, I'm choosing subtract and put this weight value to 0.1, and then we're just gonna draw on our plane again, but this time with a pencil, and just randomly draw in some patterns, something that looks realistic onto these areas. You could also take the blur option, so just take it so these areas mix into each other and it doesn't look that superficial. No, I don't know if this is the right word, but anyway, going back into object mode and having a look at the grass now, we will see it didn't change because we didn't tell the grass it should use the vertex groups that we just draw on the plane. So we just choose this group and you see the grass changes. I'm also going to rename this group. By the way, rename everything or name everything, because once your project gets really big you will get confused if everything is named just plain and plain 2. So just keep in mind, always try to rename, not as I'm doing right now, but yeah, try to be consistent in your work. This is going to be the grass density, and yeah, now we have our animated grass. I can give this a try and pressing Alt A to have a look at it. You see it's really rough, it's too strong, so you should maybe you don't have to put the rotation value that high. Let's try 10 and replace these keyframes, and here maybe, I don't know, 35. Same thing again, and you see there's a small movement. It's still too strong. I'm not sure what values I took when I did the scene. Maybe 2 is enough. Yeah, this looks better. And also you might think of changing the interpolation mode to linear and not constant, not by a curve, not Bezier. So the grass is always moving. It doesn't have the fastest movement in this area. It has the same movement in the middle, at the beginning, or at the end of the animation. Yep. So play around with these values, and in the next video I will show you how to set up the tree and put some objects on the tree. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.